So I was recently asked why I have a video for every planet that is represented on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life other than one for Saturn. So to answer the question, I thought it best to do a video on the first three Sephira on the Tree of Life, known as the Supernals. And also, I thought we'd talk a little bit about the differences between the Kabbalah and planetary magic. So to begin, let's first have a brief introduction to the Kabbalistic Tree of Life and what these Sephira actually mean. The Tree of Life symbolizes 10 emanations of the process of creation. And these emanations are called Sephira. And they start at the very top with Keter, which is the divine spark and the spiritual. And it goes right down the tree, down to the last Sephira, Malkut, which represents the material world. And all the Sephira in between represent various stages of the process of creation. But they don't just represent the process of creation. They also map the psychology of the human mind. So as above, as below. The first three Sephira are a special case, and they represent the highest levels of spirituality. And they are so abstract, it's considered to be beyond the normal scope of the human mind to understand these Sephira. And these Sephira are called the Supernals. So let's take a look at what these Supernals represent. Now the first Sephira on the Tree of Life is called Keter, the crown, and it represents the first spark and the highest level of divinity. It may also be seen from some perspectives as the first ripples of energy, the first waves of energy that existed before the creation of the universe. The second Sephira, Chokmah, or wisdom, is the emanation that was the force behind the initial spark and caused the expansion. The third sphere, Binah, or understanding, is the sphere of formation. And this emanation takes the expansion of those raw energies and starts to apply some form and structure to these energies. And so these are the Supernals, the first three spheres that are responsible for the initial process of creation and formation. But as I said in the very beginning, the tree also represents a map of the human psyche. So now let's take a look at what it means in this context. Keter still represents the initial spark of energy that precedes any concept of an idea or thought. Chokmah takes this raw spark of energy and expands upon it, forcing it out as raw intellect, but currently without any formation or structure. This then is the job of Binah, to take all this raw intellect and transform it into something more meaningful. And hence the first ideas and thoughts begin to emerge. So now let's come back to the original question. And the question really is, why is there no practical work carried out on the sphere or the Sephira of Binah? Well, as we've seen, the Supernals, the first three spheres, are responsible for the first processes of creation and formation. Now, there's a big gap between the first principles of creation and actual materialization. And this gap, in practical Kabbalistic terms, is known as the Abyss. The Supernals exist beyond any realm of materialization and beyond the normal process of logical and rational comprehension. In fact, they represent the process of creation itself, and any practical work carried out in such an abstract context is completely nonsensical. This is the realm of pure divinity and not the realm of any kind of materialism. Materialistic work and materialistic concepts do not apply in the world of pure spirituality and divinity. And so, why is there no work done on Saturn in the practical Kabbalah? It's because Saturn belongs to the third emanation of Binah, and the only work to be carried out on Binah or any of the Supernals is that of enlightenment and spirituality. Now you might be saying, I know there's work that can be carried out on Saturn because I've seen books that give instructions on how to carry out such works. And this is true, and this is where we come to the differences between the practical Kabbalah and planetary magic. Now the first thing you might ask is, why do I keep referring to it as the practical Kabbalah? Why don't you just call it the Kabbalah? Well, that's because the Kabbalah has its roots back in Judaism and Jewish theology. And many people believe that the Kabbalah in its purest form is there as a means and a process to better understand the mind and word of God. Now the practical Kabbalah is a derivation from that and has its roots back in the medieval period. So this was at a time where people started to devise processes and methods of working with the Sephira in order to attain more materialistic rather than spiritual gains. And so this is what we call the practical Kabbalah. But this is still the Kabbalah in terms of its beliefs and ideology. And this is different to planetary magic, which again has its roots back in the medieval and is strongly influenced by the Kabbalah. In fact, it's similar in very many ways, except it doesn't really encompass the whole of the Kabbalistic ideology. And so in planetary magic, Saturn is indeed used for practical work. Whereas this makes completely no sense from a Kabbalistic ideology. The realms of the Supernals belong to spirituality and divinity, and they are so abstracted from the world that we live in. From the Kabbalistic perspective, it makes absolutely no sense to be trying to do any practical work in that world of pure spirituality. If you think about it, then any work you would be trying to do on Binah would be at the level of the formation of the first thought, which would be way too abstract for any practical application. So I hope you've all enjoyed today's talk on the Supernals and why there's no work done on Binah. And if you have, then give us a like, leave a comment down below to tell me your thoughts. And with that, I'll see you again very soon on the next one.